It's like a long game or something like it's something that you could just like watch or listen to in a setting. This is dear edition you could fucking get. So price was $20, but there's a lot of games on sale, so it's like $3. And it's I looked at it before, it was on my like fuck. We'll see how it goes. It's a walking and talking simulator. Some guy's gonna tell me a story about what's going on. Hopefully it gets interesting. The Lighthouse. There's 4 chapters. I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna perk my ears open because it's a fucking... I played a little bit of it. Not like anywhere story-wise. But heads up, every single button just zooms in. I'm not kidding. Every button zooms the camera in. That's it.
The morning after I was washed ashore, salt in my ears, sand in my mouth, and the waves always at my ankles, I felt as though everything had conspired to this one last shipwreck. I remembered nothing but water, stones in my belly and my shoes, threatening to drag me under to where only the most listless of creatures swim.
Zoom in. Alright, let's go. Oh yeah, I saw something interesting. If you go under the water, you just have a fucking fit. And if you keep going under the water, the guy's like, no.
Come back.
Alright, let's just fucking... $3 for this game. It's not that bad. I just wanted to see what... It's a walking, talking simulator. Good. At least. And it does look good for the time it was fucking released. Sorry, rub jizz on that. Fuck it, come.
From up on the cliffs they are mundane, but down here they fugue into ambiguity. For instance, I cannot readily tell if they belong above or below the waves. The distinction now seems banal. Why not everything and all at once? There's nothing better to do here than indulge in contradictions whilst waiting for the fabric of life to unravel. Dear Esther, I found myself to be as featureless as this ocean, as shallow and unoccupied as this bay, a listless wreck without identification. My rocks are these bones, and a careful fence to keep the precipice at bay. Shot through me caves, my forehead a mount. This aerial will transmit into me so. All overexposed, the nervous system, where Donnelly's boots and yours and mine still trample. I will carry a torch for you. I will leave it at the foot of my headstone. You will need it for the tunnels that carry me under.
Why is this guy talking so cynical? What happened? Not even mentioned in the fucking translucent, the bioluminescent fucking, it's not even bioluminescent. Somebody just drew some glow-in-the-dark stuff on the wall. Just crop circle back there, except it's not on a crop. Oh, so I'm guessing I had to go down there in the first place. Who puts a radio tower on a fucking lighthouse island? It's like a waste of resources.
The mount is clearly the focal point of this landscape. It almost appears so well placed as to be artificial. I find myself easily slipping into the delusional state of ascribing purpose, deliberate motive to everything here. Was this island formed during the moment of impact? When we were torn loose from our moorings, and the seatbelts cut motorway lanes into our chests and shoulders, did it first break surface then?
Okay, so there's this island that used to be part of a bigger landmass. That'd explain the car.
When someone had died or was dying, or was so ill they gave up what little hope they could sacrifice, they cut parallel lines into the cliff, exposing the white chalk beneath. You could see them from the mainland or the fishing boat, and notice and aid, or impose a cordon of protection. Wait a generation until whatever pestilence stalked the cliff paths died along with its hosts. My lines are just for this, to keep any would-be rescuers at bay. The infection is not simply of the flesh.
Infection? Was that Stonehenge? It's a walkie-talkie simulator.
We are not like Lot's wife, you and I. we feel no particular need to turn back. There's nothing to be seen if we did. No tired old man parting the cliffs with his arms. No gifts or Bibles laid out on the sand for the taking. No tides turning or the shrieking gulls overhead. The bones of the hermit are no longer laid out for the taking. I have stolen them away to the guts of this island, where the passages all run to black, and where we can light each other's faces by their strange luminescence. Dear Esther, I met Paul. I made my own little pilgrimage. My Damascus, a small semi-detached on the outskirts of Wolverhampton. We drank coffee in his kitchen and tried to connect to one another. Although he knew I hadn't come in search of an apology, reason or retribution, he still spiraled in panic, thrown high and lucid by his own dented bonnet. Responsibility had made him old. Like us, he'd already passed beyond any conceivable boundary of life. I would leave you presents outside your retreat in this interim space between cliff and beach. I would leave you loaves and fishes. The fish stocks had been depleted and I'd run out of bread. I would row you back to your homeland in a bottomless boat, but I fear we would both be driven mad by the chatter of the sea creatures.
Somebody drew a Cthulhu dick on the wall. Somebody drew a eldritch penis on the wall. What was that? Hey? Strange tip. Wait, what? No, I went in circles. Where's that? Like the path down to the fucking just rocky area, I'm guessing there's just different places, but... And the music's back. There's just different places for commentary or something. You gotta admit, this game looks pretty good, but it's a walkie-talkie simulator.
He still maintains he wasn't drunk, but tired. I can't make the judgment or the distinction anymore. I was drunk when I landed here, and tired too. I walked up the cliff path in near darkness and camped in the bay where the trawler lies beached. It was only at dawn that I saw the bothy and decided to make my temporary lodgings there. I was expecting just the area and a transmitter stashed in a weatherproof box somewhere on the mount. It had an air of uneasy permanence to it. Like all the other buildings here, erosion seems to have evaded it completely.
I got two paths. I can either go this way or I could go that way. Let's go this way. That's my death. Those are what that is. Now we're on to this. Donna, I don't know what that means.
Dear Esther, I have now driven the stretch of the M5 between Exeter and Bristol over 21 times. But although I have all the reports and all the witnesses, and have cross-referenced them within a millimetre using my Ordnance Survey maps, I simply cannot find the location. You'd think there would be marks to serve as some evidence. It's somewhere between the turn-off for Sanford and the welcome brake services, but although I can always see it in my rear-view mirror, I have as yet been unable to pull ashore.
Let's just not go there yet. Trust me, I want to go over there. I want to see those broken ships. Something just caught my eye, this glowy thing. What? There was a fucking thing.
There must be a hole in the bottom of the boat. How else could new hermits have arrived? I had kidney stones, and you visited me in the hospital. After the operation, when I was still half submerged in anesthetic, your outline and your speech both blurred. Now my stones have grown into an island and made their escape, and you have been rendered opaque by the car of a drunk.
I didn't hear about your kidney stones, man.
Was this what Paul saw through his windscreen? Not Lot's wife looking over her shoulder, but a scar in the hillside, falling away to black forever.
Still can't make heads or tails what the fuck he's trying to tell me.
I've begun my ascent on the green slope of the western side. I've looked deep into the mountain from the shaft and understood that I must go up and then find the way under. I will stash the last vestiges of my civilization in the stone walls and work deeper from there. I'm drawn by the aerial and the cliff edge. There is some form of rebirth waiting for me there. The bothy was constructed originally in the early 1700s. By then, shepherding had formalized into a career. The first habitual shepherd was a man called Jakobsen, from a lineage of migratory Scandinavians. He was not considered a man of breeding by the mainlanders. He came here every summer whilst building the bothy, hoping eventually that becoming a man of property would secure him a wife and a lineage. Donnelly records that it did not work. He caught some disease from his malcontented goats and died 2 years after completing it. There was no one to carve white lines into the cliff for him either.
This guy's just giving me depressing history lesson. And more glow in the dark. Okay.
Is landfill. These false dawns waking into the still never light. I sweat for you in the small hours and wrap my blankets into a mass. I've always heard the waves break on these lost shores, always the gulls forgotten. I can lift this bottle to my ear, and all there ever is for me is this Hebridean music.
That's probably where we're heading.
In a footnote, the editor comments that at this point Donnelly was going insane as syphilis tore through his system like a drunk driver. He's not to be trusted. Many of his claims are unsubstantiated, and although he does paint a colourful picture, much of what he says may have been derived directly from his fever. But I've been here, and I know, as Donnelly did, that this place is always half imagined. Even the rocks and caves will shimmer and blur with the right eyes. They found Jakobsen in early spring. The thaw had only just come. Even though he'd been dead nearly 7 months, his body had been frozen right down to the nerves and had not even begun to decompose. All around him small flowers were reaching for the weak sun. The goats had adjusted happily to life without a shepherd and were grazing freely about the valley. Donnelly reports they hurled the body in fear and disgust down the shaft, but I cannot corroborate this story. Climbing down to the caves, I slipped and fell and have injured my leg. I think the femur is broken. It is clearly infected. The skin has turned a bright, tight pink, and the pain is crashing in on waves, winter tides against my shoreline, drowning out the ache of my stones. I struggled back to the bothy to rest, but it has become clear that there is only one way this is likely to end. The medical supplies I looted from the trawler have suddenly found their purpose. They will keep me lucid for my final ascent.
Whoop. Jakobsen.
Donnelly's addiction is my one true constant. Even though I wake in false dawns and find the landscape changing and flowing inconstantly through my tears, I know his reaching is always upon me.
first saw him sat by the side of the road. He was waiting for you to be cut out of the wreckage. The car looked like it had been dropped from a great height. The guts of the engine spilled over the tarmac, like water underground. I'm traversing my own death throes. The infection in my leg is an oil rig that dredges black muck up from deep inside my bones. I swallow fistfuls of diazepam and paracetamol to stay conscious. The pain flows through me like an underground sea.
Is this whole game just like a really beautiful walk? However, it's like the explanation, some explanation that this guy is slowly dying because he fucking, I don't know, went on a hiking trip or something like that. I'm trying to make sense of this. It's kind of hard.
This cannot be the shaft they threw the goats into. It cannot be the landfill where the parts of your life that would not burn ended up. It cannot be the chimney that delivered you to the skies. It cannot be the place where you rained back down again to fertilize the soil and make small flowers in the rocks.
What the fuck? I don't get it. This guy get into like a hit and run, and he fucking is trying to run away from the cops, and he fucking busted his leg or some shit like that. He's taking drugs, trying to stay the infection. But he's slowly dying because he fucking sprained his ankle or something. Esther.
I sat here and watched two jets carve parallel white lines into the sky. They charted their course, and I followed them for 21 minutes until they turned off near Sanford and were lost. If I were a gull, I would abandon my nest and join them. I would starve my brain of oxygen and suffer delusions of transcendence. I would tear the bottom from my boats this island once again.
There it is again. There's a fucking person.
Dear Esther, I find each step harder and heavier. I drag Donnelly's corpse on my back across these rocks, and all I hear are his whispers of guilt, his reminders, his burnt letters, his neatly folded clothes. He tells me I was not drunk at all.
Yeah, he died. He like got in a car crash. And now they're dying. This is depressing and weird. It's just a whole lot of shit.
There were chemical diagrams on the mug he gave me coffee in, sticky at the handle where his hands shook. He worked for a pharmaceutical company with an office based on the outskirts of Wolverhampton. He'd been travelling back from a sales conference in Exeter, forming a strategic vision for the peddling of antacid yogurt to the European market. You could trace the connections with your finger, join the dots, and whole new compounds would be summoned into activity.
Okay, yeah, that explains the fucking
From
diet.
here, I can see my armada. I collected all the letters I'd ever meant to send to you, if I'd have ever made it to the mainland, but had instead collected at the bottom of my rucksack, and I spread them out along the lost beach. Then I took each and every one, and I folded them into boats. I folded you into the creases, and then, as the sun was setting, I set the fleet to sail. Shattered into 21 pieces, I consigned you to the Atlantic, and I sat here until I'd watched all of you sink.
It's a story of a dead guy. A guy who's dying. Or something. Oh, fuck. It's getting more and more confusing. Yeah?
Bud,
Why?
Daisy and Stacy are going to Walmart in Newport.
A
Do you
sound
have
of torn
anything you
metal,
want?
teeth
Newport?
running over the edge
No.
of the room.
No, okay. I'm not going. But I didn't know if you wanted to go with them.
No, I
You don't
don't.
have to, but I didn't know if there's anything you want at Walmart.
No, there's nothing.
Okay. Alright, they're going, we're
Rocks,
staying.
a moon that casts a signal as I lay pinned beside you, the ticking of the cooling engine, and the calling from a great height, all my mind as a bypass.
I'm gonna head towards that person. I'm gonna go over this hill. They're gonna disappear. I'm gonna get closer to this person. Oh, I can't go up the hill. They're gonna jump off the cliff or something like that. They disappear.
I've begun my voyage in a paper boat without a bottom. I will fly to the moon in it. I've been folded along a crease in time, a weakness in the sheet of life. Now you've settled on the opposite side of the paper to me. I can see your traces in the ink that soaks through the fiber, the pulped vegetation. When we become waterlogged and the cage disintegrates, we will intermingle. When this paper aeroplane leaves the cliff edge and casts parallel vapor trails in the dark, we will come together.
This voice actor reminds me a lot of the guy from A Machine for Pigs, Mandus, which I'm going to stream too, because A Machine for Pigs is one of my favorite games, horror game.
If only Donnelly had experienced this, he would have realized he was his own shoreline, as am I. Just as I am becoming this island, so he became his syphilis, retreating into the burning synapses, the stones, the infection.
Okay, so yeah, this is a fucking... some sort of representation of me dying or something.
There are headlights reflected in these retinas. Too long in the tunnels of my island without a bottom. The sea creatures have risen to the surface, but the gulls are not here to carry them back to their nests. I've become fixed, open and staring, an eye turned on itself. I've become an infected leg whose tracking lines form a perfect map of the junctions of the M5. I will take the exit at mid-thigh and plummet to my ester.
Yeah, this is really reminding me of Machine for Pigs.
blind with panic, deaf with the roar of the caged traffic. Heart stopped on the road to Damascus. Paul sat at the roadside, hunched up like a gull, like a bloody gull. As useless and as doomed as a syphilitic cartographer, a dying goat herd, an infected leg, a kidney stone, blocking the traffic bound for Sanford and Exeter. He was not drunk, Esther. He was not drunk at all. All his roads and his tunnels and his paths led inevitably to this moment of impact. This is not a recorded natural condition. He should not be sat there with his chemicals and his circuit diagrams. He should not be sat there at all.
Alright, yeah, definitely Machine for Pigs. I'm definitely gonna want to fucking play Machine for Pigs because this voice actually reminds me a lot of it.
Run out of places to climb. I will abandon this body and take to the air. Dear Esther, I have burnt my belongings, my books, this death certificate. Mine will be written all across this island. Who was Jacobson? Who remembers him? Donnelly has written of him, but who was Donnelly? Who remembers him? I have painted, carved, hewn, scored into this space all that I could draw from him. There will be another to these shores to remember me. I will rise from the ocean like an island without bottom, come together like a stone, become an aerial, a beacon, that they will not forget you. We have always been drawn here. One day the gulls will return and nest in our bones and our history. I will look to my left and see Esther Donnelly flying beside me. I will look to my right and see Paul Jacobson flying beside me. They will leave white lines carved into the air to reach the mainland, where help will be sent.
hole. Alright, well, that game's a looker. Doesn't last long. But it's a looker. They made it. You could have wrote... Oh, well, you could treat a fucking game as an art form if you want. That's what these people did. They treated it as like an art form. And they did a pretty good job. I really liked the look of the different settings of the island and stuff. Not too keen on the story, but the voice actor was pretty good. The story I couldn't make really it was just a guy dying. And like, yeah, I'm fucking dead. Yeah. Yeah. I'm pretty sure these guys made another game, and it was actually not just about a guy dying or something like that. But it was another walkie-talkie simulator, like this was. Anyway, I'll play more interesting games in the future. I just decided to have something swirling around. If you could even fucking... I hope that you're able to fucking see it, because I got a notification in my thing that said that the connection was bad or something like that. Yeah, I'll find out later. Either way. Thank you.